haste, auto-equip, card draw, and treasures. Welcome to one of the most explosive equipment decks you've ever seen. Cloud, ex-soldier. Cloud is one of the most explosive and rewarding equipment commanders we've seen in a long time. He doesn't need some weird synergies, complex combo lines, or a 10-step game plan to work. You just play creatures, suit them up with equipment, and you swing. And Cloud will reward you with card draw, and sometimes even with treasures. It really is that simple and that powerful. For 5 mana in Naya colors, you get a 4/4 body with haste, meaning Cloud will have an immediate impact on the board the turn he comes down. But his real strength comes from his 2 abilities. When Cloud enters the battlefield, we get to attach 1 equipment we control to him. That means a free equip on entry. We don't have to spend any mana to equip him, we don't have to jump through any hoops to equip him. We just play Cloud, suit him up instantly, be it with a sword with some awesome effects or just a big hammer. And he has haste, allowing us to instantly swing with him. This ability in itself already makes him a fantastic curve topper after setting up your equipment. You'll instantly be able to trigger some of the powerful attack triggers that some equipments have. Then we have his second ability. Whenever Cloud attacks, we get to draw a card for each attacking equipped creature we control. If Cloud's power is 7 or greater, we also get to generate 2 treasure tokens. This ability really is the core value engine of the deck, since usually equipment decks really have problems drawing cards and Cloud solves that problem. And it's not just Cloud, we get to draw a card for each attacking equipped creature we control. This really encourages a playstyle that's more about going wide with multiple equipped creatures, rather than just playing a Voltron strategy like most equipment decks that's just about buffing up Cloud with as much equipment as possible, which really is a unique and refreshing take on equipment decks. Now let's talk about the treasure trigger. If Cloud has 7 or more power at the time he attacks, we will also get to generate 2 treasure tokens. We're not actually going out of our way to make Cloud hit 7 power. There's no buff Cloud to 7 power section in this deck. But with equipment naturally boosting the power of a creature, sometimes you just will get an additional benefit of generating 2 treasure tokens when you swing with Cloud. These will help you accelerate your game plan, deploy even more equipment, and just give you the mana to protect Cloud and your other creatures. Play creatures, play equipment, attack, and draw cards. That's it. No downsides and no overthinking it. And that is the reason why I love this deck so much. It's really powerful without being complicated. Whether you are a newer Magic player or a seasoned veteran looking for an equipment deck, Cloud is a rock solid option. And if you found this video because you got the Cloud Final Fantasy Precon deck, you can always use this video as a guide to upgrade the Precon. As I do in all my deck videos, I will be going over every single card I decided to include in the deck and explaining why I decided to include it. This video is divided up in 6 categories: the creatures, the equipment, acceleration, support, interaction and protection, and the lands. Let's get into it. First up, we have the creatures. Obviously, all of these creatures synergize with equipment in some way. Some reduce equip costs, some creatures actually care about being equipped, and some creatures bring additional benefits in some other way, like giving double strike or additional combat phases. And remember, in a Cloud deck, we want as many creatures that are equipped to swing with as possible, since Cloud will just reward us with some awesome card draw. Fervent Champion, a 1 mana 1/1 creature with first strike and haste. Whenever this creature attacks, we get to give another attacking knight we control +1/0 until the end of turn. We don't really care about this ability, honestly. We do play a couple of other knights in the deck and it is somewhat of a nice little power boost, but it's all about the last ability. Equip abilities that target Fervent Champion cost 3 mana less to activate. Most equipment we play in this deck has an equip cost of 3 or lower, so basically we can just attach equipment for free to this creature. When you play this creature as early as turn 1, you can just follow up with equipment and equip it to him for free, and then just start swinging with it and triggering the powerful abilities of the equipment. Also later in the game, when you already have a board of powerful equipment, you can just play him for 1 mana, equip something for free on him, and just instantly swing with it, because it has haste. So both a great option to have in your opening hand and a great card to draw later in the game. Pretty powerful for just a 1-drop. Zakfir, a new card we got in the Final Fantasy set. It's a 1 mana 0/1 creature that will enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Already a really good card to play on turn 1 and just attach equipment to. For just 1 generic mana, we can sacrifice this creature to give one of our other creatures indestructible until the end of turn, which is a fantastic option option to protect your high value creatures. Then we get to put any counters that this creature had on him onto the target creature. And also any equipment that was attached to Zek when we sacrificed it, we get to equip to target creature. This 1 mana ability is absolutely crazy on just a 1-drop creature. You can just play him early in the game, use him as some sort of an equipment carrier and start swinging with him. Later in the game, when you control some more valuable creatures and someone plays like a removal spell or a board wipe, for example, you can just sacrifice Zek, the +1/+1 counter will be moved to that creature, and all equipment will also be attached to that creature, so you can just bypass the equip costs. Bureau Headmaster. This 2-drop 2/2 creature will reduce both the cost of casting any equipment and the cost to equip any equipment by 1 generic mana. On paper, this card might look pretty boring, but it actually accelerates our game plan by a ton. You can just drop this on turn 2 and you will be able to do some insane plays afterwards. Just to give you an example of how strong and potent this card is, if you play this on turn 2, when you untap on turn 3, you will have 3 available mana. You can then just cast any of the swords for 2 mana and instantly equip it with the 1 mana you have left, making you able to equip the sword on this creature and instantly swing with it, allowing you to get some sword triggers as early as turn 3, which honestly is really crazy. And that's just giving an example with the swords. In this deck we play a total of 19 equipment and Bureau Headmaster will reduce the costs of all of them. Sit. Free Flyer Pilot, another awesome 2-drop we got in the Final Fantasy set that you can really play in any equipment deck. He makes all of our equipment and vehicle spells cost 1 less generic mana to cast. As mentioned with the previous card, this really accelerates our game plan and allows us to play our equipment way earlier than we should. His second ability is Jump. He will have flying as long as it's our turn, making him into a really great carrier for equipment, especially equipment that relies on dealing combat damage to players. These 2 abilities alone already would make him a fantastic inclusion in the deck. On top of that, he also has an activated ability. For 2 mana and tapping him, we can return any equipment or vehicle spell from our graveyard to our hand. So later in the game, if your opponents do manage to remove some of your key equipment, you can just use it as some sort of a recursion machine. Just activate his ability and returning the key equipment you need back to your hand. So your opponents will have to deal with the nightmare all over again. Hey, look, it's another version of Cloud. This time as a 2-drop 2/1 creature. When Cloud enters the battlefield, we get to search our library for any equipment card and put it into our hand. Functioning in the same way as a Steel Shaper's Gift, just a free tutor for any equipment. And we also get a 2/1 body to actually attach the equipment to. As long as Cloud is equipped and an ability of Cloud or any equipment that is attached to him would trigger, it triggers an additional time. As you will see later in the equipment section of this video, all of our equipments have really insane triggers whenever a creature attacks or whenever a creature deals combat damage. Cloud will just allow us to double up on those triggers. Let's take for example the Reaver Cleaver. This equipment says whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, we get to generate that much treasure tokens. When this is attached to Cloud, you will generate twice that amount of treasure tokens, which is absolutely insane value. Lion Sash, a creature that's basically also an equipment since it has the reconfigure mechanic. Reconfigure basically means whenever you cast this card, it will enter as a creature. When you pay the reconfigure cost, you can equip this creature to another creature and it will turn into an equipment. Whether Lion Sash is a creature or an equipment, you can always use its activated ability. For just 1 white mana, we get to exile any card from any graveyard. If the exiled card was a permanent card, we get to put a +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. As a result of this, Lion Sash will just keep growing in power. And it also gives the creature this is equipped to the same power boost as the number of counters on Lion Sash. So just a fantastic equipment. As I mentioned in all my videos, you should play Graveyard Hate in any of your decks. Nowadays, in Modern Magic, basically 90% of the decks rely on using their graveyard. Be it a Spellslinger deck that wants to flashback some spells, be it a Reanimator deck that wants to reanimate some powerful creatures, or even a Landfall deck that just wants to mill lands and then return them to the battlefield. Lion Sash is a fantastic card to deal with any of those problems. For the low cost of 1 mana, you can prevent another player from comboing off and winning the game. And it also functions as an equipment that just will keep getting stronger over the course of the game. And whenever at the end of turn you just have some white mana left, you can just start pumping it into Lion Sash and it will become a problem for your opponents. Professor Hojo. This creature will reduce the cost of the first activated ability you use that targets a creature you control during your turn by 2 generic mana. And you guessed it, equipping an equipment to a creature is actually an activated ability. So the first equip we do in any of our turns will be reduced by 2 mana, which synergizes perfectly with Hojo's second ability. Whenever one or more creatures we control become the target of an activated ability, we get to draw a card. This ability only triggers once per turn. Professor Hojo is just a fantastic fit for this type of deck. Like most equipment decks, we really need card draw because we can easily drop some powerful creatures, drop some powerful equipment, but our hand will be empty really fast. Professor Hojo will make sure that once per turn we can draw a card whenever we attach an equipment to a creature we control. And since he reduces the cost of equipping an equipment by 2 mana, it will make it really easy to just switch our equipment around to draw some cards. Pure Steel Paladin, probably one of the best creatures in the deck. For 2 white mana we get a 2/2 creature that will draw us a card whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under our control. And as you probably could have guessed, we will be playing a ton of equipment. So he will actually solve the biggest weakness in this deck, and that is drawing cards. And it doesn't stop there. He also has the Metalcraft ability. As long as we control 3 or more artifacts, every equip cost on equipment we control will be reduced to 0 mana. In most scenarios, we will easily meet the 3 artifact requirement for this card, since all of our equipments are artifacts. The fact that our equip costs go to 0 mana means we can just start shuffling our equipment around and just equipping all our equipment to our creatures. We will never run into the problem that we don't have the mana to pay for any equip costs. This card honestly is the first card I'd include in any equipment deck. Roban, Bull of Alamigo. Honestly, I have no idea if I got the pronunciation right, so let me know in the comments below. It's a 2 mana 2/2 creature with Ward. Whenever an opponent wants to target this creature, they will lose life equal to his power, which makes him into a really good equipment carrier. If his power is boosted by any of our equipment, our opponents will always be losing life if they want to remove him. And whenever this creature attacks, we get to attach any equipment we control to an attacking creature. This card can do some really crazy things. You can just play him on turn 2. On turn 3, you can drop one of the swords, then you swing with Roban and you can instantly equip the sword to him. If opponents can block this creature, you will instantly get a sword trigger as early as turn 3. His ability also reads you can attach any equipment to any attacking creature you control, not just Roban. So when you attack with 5 creatures, for example, you can just equip 1 equipment for free or just move 1 equipment around between your creatures that are attacking. This is a really great way to cheat some extra equipment onto Cloud, get him to 7 power and generate those 2 treasure tokens. Riaf, Master Smith. At first, I didn't want to include this creature in the deck because it did seem a little bit weak on paper, but during testing, it proved to be one of the better creatures and more explosive creatures in the entire deck. It's a 2-drop creature with a really simple ability. Whenever a creature we control that's equipped attacks, it will also gain double strike. Sometimes you just end up with a board with equipped creatures and you will be able to do like 10 or 20 damage, for example, and your opponents just don't really care about your creatures. If you just drop Reaf later in the game and you have like 2-3 equipped creatures and you swing with them, suddenly they do become a problem since they will deal double damage due to the double strike. This is also a really fantastic way to give Cloud double strike and actually make sure you can win on commander damage, since Cloud will be equipped 99% of the time. Sram, Senior Edificer. Like I mentioned before, the real weakness of equipment-based decks is drawing cards, and Storm really solves that problem. Whenever we cast a vehicle, aura, or equipment spell, we get to draw a card. So basically, we can just start dropping our equipment and Strum will make sure our hand stays full. Stoneforge Mystic. Probably the most well-known equipment creature in the entirety of Magic. For 2 mana, we get a 1/2 creature that whenever it enters allows us to search our library for any equipment card and put it into our hand. Just like Cloud, another creature that allows us to cast like basically a free Steel Shaper's Gift whenever it enters the battlefield. And for 2 mana and tapping it, we can put any equipment we have in our hand onto the battlefield. So if you have any equipment in your hand that costs more than 2 mana, Stoneforge Mystic will make sure you can cheat it out for the 2 measly mana. For example, if you drop Stoneforge on turn 2, you can just go tutor up a really expensive equipment like Caldera Complete, which is a 7 mana equipment with really crazy effects. If you then get to turn 3, you can just invest 2 mana, tap Stoneforge Mystic, and it will enter the battlefield, which honestly is almost impossible for your opponents to deal with. Akiri, Fearless Voyager, a 3 mana 3/3 creature with 2 awesome abilities. Whenever we attack a player with 1 or more equipped creatures, we get to draw a card. As you know by now, every turn we will be swinging with an equipped creature, so Akiri just makes sure our hand stays full for the course of the game. And our activated ability for 1 mana is just a fantastic protection ability. We can pay the 1 and unattach an equipment from a creature we control. We then have to tap that creature and it will gain indestructible until the end of turn. Let's say you have Cloud on the field who will always have an equipment attached to him. If an opponent tries to remove Cloud, you can just pay 1 mana, remove an equipment that's attached from him, and he will get indestructible. So both a card that generates a card advantage and will be able to protect our most valuable creatures. Arden, Interpret Archaeologist, a 3 mana 2/2 body that allows us at the beginning of combat on our turn to attach any equipment or any auras we control to target permanent. This card basically ensures that none of our equipment goes to waste. If for example you have 4 equipments on the battlefield but you don't have the mana to equip them to a creature, with Arden you just bypass the equip costs. You can just target all 4 of those equipments, equip them to 1 target permanent, and then just swing with a creature with a ton of equipment attached to it. Don't underestimate how high the equip costs in this deck actually can get. This is the reason why we play a ton of cards that reduce equip costs or allow us to equip for free. Danita Kapashen. This 3-drop creature will reduce the cost of any equipment we play by 1. I already explained on the earlier cost reduction creatures how good this effect is. With Danita, we also get a body that's just perfect to carry equipment since it has Vigilance, First Strike, and Lifelink. So if we can just equip Danita with some powerful equipment, we will always have those 3 keywords in place, allowing us to have an untapped blocker, a really solid body that can win with First Strike combat, and will gain us a ton of life due to the lifelink. Kodama of the West Tree. It's a 3 mana 3/3 body with Reach. Passively, it will give all of our modified creatures trample. A creature is modified when it has an aura attached to it, an equipment attached to it, or is modified by some counters on it. As you know, this entire deck revolves around our creatures actually being equipped. So usually we will be controlling a ton of modified creatures at all times. You can use the trample to just equip Cloud with some huge power boosting equipment and swing for commander damage. And for example, if you play against a token player who always will have 1/1 tokens to block your 10/10 creatures with, Kodama will make sure you always get combat damage through. And probably one of the most broken abilities in the entirety of Magic is Kodama's last ability. Whenever a modified creature we control deals combat damage to an opponent, we get to search our library for a basic land card and put it into play tapped. The amount of mana acceleration Kodama will grant you in this type of deck is honestly just ridiculous. Early in the game, if you can just swing with 1 equipped creature, it will allow you to just get 1 land out of your deck onto the battlefield tapped, which will really accelerate your mana. And later in the game, if you are able to swing with more modified creatures and actually connect with them, you will just be able to filter all the basic lands out of your deck and you will end up with a huge amount of mana. Oh, and remember the fact that this card also gives trample to all of these modified creatures? Yeah, you will be getting combat damage through. Kutsil, Malamet Exemplar. This 3-drop creature basically has a similar effect to Grand Abolisher. Opponents can cast any spells during our turn. This is a really underrated and really good effect since you can just start playing your things during your turn and you don't have to worry about any counter magic, any combat tricks that will be deployed against you, or like any bounce or removal effects. This effect can sometimes even stop infinite loops that players will be using during your turn. And it's also another card that helps with the weakness of our deck, drawing cards. Whenever 1 or more creatures we control with our power higher than their base power deal combat damage to a player, we get to draw a card. Thanks to our equipment, our equipped creatures will always be at a higher power than their base power. Because Kutsil says 1 or more, whenever you swing with 3 creatures at 1 opponent and they all do combat damage, you will still only be getting to draw 1 card. Usually the better strategy is to send 3 creatures and 1 at each opponent, because if you deal damage to 3 opponents at once, Kutsil will actually grant you 3 cards. Just a fun little tip for abilities that trigger whenever you deal combat damage to a player and say one or more creatures. Talking about that sort of ability, Professional Facebreaker. The ability is really similar to Kutsil. Whenever one or more creatures deal combat damage to an opponent, we get to generate a treasure token. Once again, it's better to send your creatures to different players, since if you just send your creatures at one opponent, you will only be able to generate one treasure token. The main reason why we play this card, aside from its awesome treasure generation, is the activated ability. We can sacrifice a treasure token to exile the top card of our library. Then we can play that card until the end of the turn. This is a great way to turn the treasure tokens that Cloud generates or that this card generates into additional card advantage. If your hand is empty and you don't have a way to draw cards, you can just start exiling the top cards and casting them from exile directly. A really awesome way to dig really deep into your deck. I almost forgot to mention, this creature also has menace, meaning it has to be blocked by 2 or more creatures. This makes it a perfect carrier for any equipment that triggers on dealing combat damage, making it a little bit harder to block. Mabel, the heir to Cragflame. It's a 3 mana 3/3 mouse soldier. He passively will boost the power of any other mice we control by +1/+1. Sadly, we don't play any other rodents in this deck. Whenever Mabel enters the battlefield, we get to create a legendary equipment, Cragflame. We can equip this for just 2 mana and it will give the equipped creature +1/1, Vigilance, Trample and Haste. Honestly, these are really good keywords. Just casting this equipment for the cost of 3 mana would already be a really good deal. But with Mabel, it also comes with a 3/3 body. Fantastic value for just 3 mana. Willet, whatever, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's a 3 mana 2/2 creature with Trample, meaning it is a fantastic carrier for equipment, always allowing us to get combat damage through. Whenever this card attacks, we get to draw 1 card per equipment attached to it. This card is really controversial in this deck since we want as many equipped creatures as possible, but this card really promotes putting as much equipment we control as possible on this card. So whenever he attacks and he has 3 cards equipped to him, we get to draw 3 cards. That being said, you don't have to do it this way. It's perfectly fine value if you can just have him on the battlefield equipped with 1 equipment, and every time he attacks, we will get to draw a card. Every single card we can draw in this deck is just fantastic. And if for some reason later in the game you can move your equipment around for free due to some of the other cards in this deck, you can just stack him up with equipment, swing with him, and you will be able to refill your hand instantly. Armored Skyhunter, a 4 mana 3/3 flying creature with an awesome attack trigger. Whenever this creature attacks, we get to look at the top 6 cards of our library. Then we can reveal any equipment card from those 6 cards and put it onto the battlefield. If we do, we can also instantly attach that equipment we selected from those 6 cards to an attacking creature we control. This ability just brings some insane value. We get some sort of semi-card advantage by filtering through the top 6 cards of our deck. Then we get to cheat an equipment into play for free. We also get to equip it for free, and an attacking creature we control instantly gains all the benefits of that equipment. If you're even only attacking with this creature and just cheat an equipment onto this creature and get the trigger, it's already really good value. But it gets even better when you swing with more creatures and have some really powerful creatures with really good keywords or abilities that synergize really well with equipment and get to cheat an equipment onto them. It doesn't have an immediate impact on the board since you do have to attack with this creature to get the trigger, but we do place some equipment to give it haste. Halvar, God of Battle. This guy will give any of our equipped or enchanted creatures double strike, which is probably one of the best mechanics you can have in this type of deck. Double strike allows us to deal a huge amount of damage, win combat in the first strike damage step so we don't actually lose our creatures in trading, and we do play a ton of cards that trigger whenever a creature deals combat damage. With double strike you will actually get 2 instances of combat damage, so you will get double the triggers. And at the beginning of each combat we get to attach an equipment we control to a creature we control. So we get to bypass any equip costs. And it's not just at the beginning of our combat, but at the beginning of each combat. During our turn, we can just attach any equipment to a creature we're gonna swing with. Then when an opponent starts combat, we can actually move an equipment to a creature we still have untapped and we can block with an equipped creature. This is just a really good value on a 4 mana body. We can also choose to cast the backside of this card, Sword of the Realms. It's a 2 mana equipment that will give a creature +2/0 and Vigilance. Whenever the equipped creature would die, we get to return it to our hand instead. 90% of the time you will be casting the front side of this card, Halvar. But in some fringe situations, if you really need an equipment to trigger some of the synergies in this deck, you can actually cast the backside. But the creature side is the reason why we really play it. And the last card in the creature section is Nahiri, Forged in Fury. It's a 6 mana creature with affinity for equipment, meaning the casting cost is reduced by 1 generic mana for each equipment we control. In the mid game, you can usually cast this creature for just 4 mana if you control 2 equipment. Later in the game, when you have a ton of equipment on the board, she will only cost you 2 mana, which is a really good deal for a 5/4 body with a good ability. Whenever an equipped creature we control attacks, we get to exile the top card of our library. We are allowed to cast any of the exiled cards until the end of turn. And on top of that, if we exile any equipment with this effect, we get to cast it for free. This is honestly the perfect card for our go wide equipped creature strategy, since we will get a Nahiri trigger for every equipped creature we swing with, allowing us to dig really deep into our deck and cheat out some equipment for free. Before we get into the section you've all been waiting for, the equipment section, if you like this content and you want to support me so I can keep pumping out these in-depth deck videos, check out the YouTube membership program. All members will get early access to the videos, voting rights and monthly deck polls so you can actually choose what type of commanders I will be doing these type of deck decks about, access to exclusive chat rooms in the Panzer MTG Discord server, and at the highest membership tier you can even submit your deck for review by me. If you want to check it out, click the join button or check out the link in the description below. Big love to all the current YouTube members. Thanks to you, I can keep pumping out these awesome high quality videos. Next up, and probably the most important section in the deck, is the equipment section. We got a mix of equipment that boosts power, gives awesome keywords, auto-equips, or has some awesome triggers whenever we attack or deal combat damage. We also play a ton of cards with a living weapon mechanic. This means these equipments enter attached to a creature token and are just perfect for our go wide equip strategy. And Cloud will reward us with a ton of card draw. Colossus Hammer, a 1 mana equipment that will give the equipped creature plus 10/10. Yeah, this effect is really insane on just a 1 mana card. It does come with a downside. It does have an equip cost of 8 mana. You can just drop this equipment on turn 1, keep it lying on the battlefield until you play Cloud. Cloud enters, and due to his ability you can instantly attach any equipment to Cloud. When you use this effect on Colossus Hammer, this means Cloud will enter as a 14/14 haste body, which is really crazy if you think about the fact that you only need 21 commander damage on a single player to make them lose the game. And aside from Cloud, we do play a ton of creatures that allow us to equip any equipment for free. So Colossus Hammer just is a fantastic card in this deck. Bloodforged Battle Axe. This honestly is one of the weirder cards in the deck. It's a 1 mana equipment, and for 2 mana we can equip it to a creature to give it +2/0. Then whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, we get to create a copy of this equipment, which we can then in turn equip to another creature, also swing with a creature equipped with a copy, and it will also generate a new copy. So as long as you can keep equipping this card to a creature and keep dealing combat damage, you will just get more and more and more equipment. First you will have 1, then 2, then 4, then 8, then 16. Yeah, you can do the calculations. This results in 2 things. We can stack a ton of these axes on one single creature to give it a huge power boost, and we also have a ton of cards in the deck that synergize with the amount of equipment we control. And Bloodforged Battle Axe gets out of control really easily. If you just have one opponent who barely plays any creatures or just can block you swinging, you will end up with like 50 copies of this artifact, and it's just insane. Really fun card, but it does have a downside. You will need a ton of dice to keep track of how many copies of this card you control. Shadow Spear. Probably one of the most broken equipment cards ever printed thanks to its low cost. We can cast this for the low cost of 1 mana, and we can equip this for the low cost of 2 mana. The equipped creature will get +1/1, trample, and lifelink. As I mentioned before, trample is really necessary in this deck, since you can have a 50/50 creature thanks to the equipment it has on it, but as long as it doesn't have trample, an opponent can just block it with a 1/1 insect token. And the lifelink just makes sure we can stay in the game for longer, since in this deck usually we won't have any blockers for any threats, so we can just swing with our huge creature, don't care about the fact that we don't have any blockers since we will be at a huge amount of life. It also has an activated ability. For 1 mana we can make all permanents our opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn. This activated ability is really situational but can end up winning you games, especially if you play in some pots that rely on their indestructible commanders or creatures. Adaptive Omnitool, a 2 mana equipment that will boost the power and toughness of the equipped creature by +1/+1 for each artifact we control. At all times, we will be controlling a ton of equipment slash artifacts, so this equipment will result in a huge stat boost. And it also absolutely gets out of control with Blood-Forged Battle Axe. Even if you generated 2 treasure tokens with Cloud, you can just keep them on the battlefield and these will also count as artifacts, granting an even bigger power boost. Whenever the equipped creature attacks, we get to look at the top 6 cards of our library. Then we get to reveal an artifact card from those 6 cards and put it into our hand, and the rest of those cards go to the bottom of our deck. This card basically reads whenever you attack with a creature, you get to draw a card, and you can even choose which of the 6 cards you want to draw, as long as they're artifacts. Really fantastic card to both grow a creature to insane amounts and dig deeper in your deck and get some card advantage. Black Blade Reforged, a 2-mana equipment that has the potential to grow a creature to insane amounts. The creature this is equipped to will get +1/+1 for every land we control. Even as early as turn 3, for example, it will already give a stat boost of +3/+3. If you go later in the game, you will control a ton of lands, and this simple 2-mana equipment will give like +10/+10. We can equip this to any legendary creature we control by just paying 3 mana. As you saw in a creature section, 80% of the creatures in this deck are legendary creatures, so usually you will only have to pay the 3 mana. If you want to equip this to a non-legendary creature, you will have to pay a whopping 7 mana, or just use one of the free equip effects in this deck. Glimmerlands, the first equipment in this deck that has the 4 Mirrodin mechanic. This mechanically basically says whenever this equipment enters a battlefield, it enters attached to a 2/2 rebel creature token. Equipment that has the living weapon, job select, or 4 Mirrodin mechanics are just fantastic, since they do already come attached to a creature body. When we then drop Cloud, we can just swing with these and they will count as equipped creatures and draw us cards. If your opponents do manage to remove the creature token this is attached to, it will just still be on the battlefield as an equipment you can then equip to another creature. Whenever a creature equipped with Glimmerlands attacks with at least one other creature, we get to draw a card. Just a really simple equipment that enters on a body and allows us to draw cards. Power Fist, an equipment from the Fallout series. The equipped creature gets trample, which is probably one of the most relevant keywords you can have in an equipment deck. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you get to put that much +1/+1 counters on that creature. Thanks to the creature getting trample, you will always get damage through. If you swing with a huge creature that has double strike and a ton of equipment attached to it, you will just be able to put a ton of creatures on that creature and grow it insane amounts. If your opponents can't remove this creature, it will grow into a game-ending threat. For example, it will swing for 10 damage, then double its counters to 20, 40, 80, 160, and you will just be able to take players out of the game. Caduceus, Staff of Hermes. It's a 3-mana equipment that will give the equipped creature lifelink. As long as we have 30 or more life, the equipped creature will get +5/5, indestructible, and we get to prevent all damage that would be dealt to this creature. As you know, in a game of Commander, we start at 40 life. So if opponents don't swing at you really early, you can just drop this equipment, equip it to something, and you will get an insane stat boost plus indestructible. If opponents do put some pressure on you and put you at a low life total, thanks to this equipment giving a lifelink to the equipped creature, you can just start swinging with it, up your life total, and you will end up with more than 30 life, enabling all of the other awesome abilities this equipment has. Loxodon Warhammer, a really simple and straightforward equipment. 3 mana to play it, 3 mana to equip it. The equipped creature will get trample, lifelink, and +3/0. The best keywords we can have in this deck and a really solid power boost. Nettle Cyst, a 3 mana equipment that also has the living weapon mechanic. Like Adaptive Omnitool, this equipment will give the equipped creature +1/1 for each artifact and enchantment we control. It already enters on a 0/0 creature token and does count itself, so baseline this will be a 1/1. Later in the game, if you do have a ton of equipment, ton of treasures, or any other artifacts on the battlefield, this equipment will give a huge power boost. If the germ gets removed, it's just an equipment you can equip onto any other creature. This is especially good if you can attach it to a creature that has trample. Samurai's Katana, a 3 mana equipment with the job select mechanic from Final Fantasy. This means this equipment enters attached to a 1/1 colorless creature token. The equipped creature will get +2/2, haste, and trample, and it will also be a samurai in addition to its other types. So baseline for 3 mana you get a 3/3 trample haste body, which is a perfectly good deal. Then for 5 mana we can attach this equipment to any other creature. If we do have some free equip effects and we want to give some creatures trample and haste, which is a really deadly combination of keywords, we can just use Samurai's Katana for that. If you already have Cloud on the battlefield, you can just play this card. Since it does come attached to a creature, you can just swing with Cloud and this creature at the same time and Cloud will draw you 2 cards. Sword of Feast and Famine. One of the classic swords cards that give protection from 2 colors that the sword is in, will give a 2/2 stat boost and will give you 2 awesome abilities whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player. This sword in particular will give the equipped creature protection from black and green. Black really is the relevant color here since most removal spells are in black, which means the equipped creature will not be able to be targeted by spot removal. Protection from green can also be really relevant. If an opponent plays a green deck and has like 5 green mana dorks lying around that can block your equipped creature, they won't be able to block with them. Since most mana dorks are green and with protection from green, this creature will become unblockable. Like all the swords, it also has 2 triggered abilities that will trigger whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to an opponent. First up, the player that is dealt damage will have to discard a card, just crippling their resources. And the second ability, and the craziest ability of the two, you get to untap all your lands. Let's say you control 5 lands, you just step them, play the sword, equip it to a creature, this costs 5 mana, you swing, you connect, then you untap your lands and you basically just get a ton of resources to play even more creatures or equipment. This ability will really give a huge tempo swing. Sword of Forge and Frontier. This is a red and green sword of the sword cycle. I already explained why protection from green is good, but protection from red also is really relevant, since there are a ton of red board wipes that actually deal damage to the entire board, like Blasphemous Act for example. When you have protection from red, the equipped creature will not be able to receive any damage from any red source, just protecting it from any damage-based red board wipe. The main reason why we play this sword is because it gives us some sort of card advantage and mana acceleration whenever we are able to deal combat damage with a creature equipped with this. When we deal combat damage, we get to exile the top 2 cards of our library, and we are allowed to cast those cards from exile this turn, essentially giving us some sort of card advantage, allowing us to dig deeper into our deck and just cast cards from exile. And the second part of the trigger allows us to play an additional land this turn. If you have a land in hand and you already did your land drop, you can just play an additional land, accelerate your mana, or if one of the exiled cards is a land, you can just play it from exile. Another really awesome effect that allows you to dig deeper into your deck and drop additional lands, accelerating your mana. In this deck, we do play a ton of effects that give our equipped creatures double strike. When you double strike with one of these swords equipped to a creature, you will get the triggers 2 times, since you deal combat damage in 2 separate instances. The Reaver Cleaver, probably one of the most well-known equipments in modern Magic. 3 mana to cast it, 3 mana to equip it, and the equipped creature will get Trample, which is actually really relevant for the next ability. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, we get to create that many treasure tokens. Honestly, the Reaver Cleaver can get out of control really fast. You can just play this on turn 3. If you can follow up with Cloud on turn 4 due to some mana acceleration, you can just start swinging with Cloud. He will have Trample, and whenever he deals damage, you will be able to generate some treasure tokens, accelerating your mana, allowing you to play even more equipment. When later in the game you have a ton of equipment on one single creature and it's like at 10-20 power, you can swing with it and the amount of treasures you generate will just be insane. The problem in this deck won't be spending that mana, since you will always be able to do so, but you will just actually run out of cards in your hand to spend the mana. The Reaver Cleaver honestly is just an insane equipment that will always be able to provide some value. Hammer of Nazan. This 4 mana equipment has the ability that whenever this equipment or another equipment enters a battlefield under our control, we can instantly attach it to a creature we control, allowing us to bypass any equip cost the equipment might have. This in itself would already be a really good ability. On top of that, Hammer of Nazan also gives the equipped creature +2/0 and indestructible. So you can just play this for 4 mana, give one of your key creatures indestructible, and on top of that get a really awesome passive effect for any future equipment you play. There also is a 6 mana creature that basically tutors up this card from your deck, but honestly I didn't think it was good enough to include in the deck. If you do want some flavorful interaction, check out that card. Hexblade Wallbreaker, a 5 mana equipment with a game-changing effect. It will enter attached to a 2/2 creature token and also give it +2/2, so it will be a 4/4 token whenever it enters. Whenever the equipped creature attacks, if this was the first combat phase of the turn, you get to untap all your creatures and you will get another combat phase. This card basically ensures you will get 2 combat phases every single turn, just dealing a ton of damage to your opponents, but more importantly, you will be able to double up on any attack triggers, combat damage triggers, or cloud triggers. When you have this equipment on the battlefield and you are able to play Cloud, you will enter with haste, you instantly will be able to equip this to Cloud, and it just will generate you an insane amount of value. Embercleave, a 6 mana equipment with flash. The cost of this equipment is reduced by 1 generic mana for each each attacking creature we control. So if you control 3 attacking creatures, you can flash in this equipment for just 3 mana. When this enters the battlefield, you instantly get to attach it to any creature you control. The equipped creature will then get +1/1, double strike, and trample. This is a really deadly combination of keywords. If you can just swing with Cloud and a couple of other creatures, flash this in, equip this on Cloud, it will gain double strike, a power boost, and trample, meaning you can set up for some really huge commander damage hits on opponents. And since this card has flash and barely costs any mana, if you're attacking with your creatures, your opponents will never see it coming. Embercleave honestly is one of my personal favorite cards to use in the entire deck. Caldera Complete. This is somewhat of the ultimate equipment you can play in any equipment deck. For 7 mana, you get an equipment with Living Weapon, meaning it enters attached to a 0/0 Journ token and the equipment is indestructible, so your opponents can barely remove it. The equipped creature will get +5/5, trample, indestructible, first strike, and haste. And on top of that, whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to another creature, we get to exile that creature, removing it from the game permanently. And the equip cost also comes in at the huge 7 mana cost. Is this card good? Yeah, probably not, because you have to cast it for 7 mana, you then get a huge body. If they can't deal with the Germ, you have to pay 7 again to get these awesome effects. Is this card good in a deck that can easily cheat out equipment and bypass equip costs? Absolutely. And the last card in this section is Excalibur, Sword of Eden. It's a 12 mana equipment that will give the equipped creature +10/0 and Vigilance. A huge stat boost, but not really worth it at 12 mana. That's where the ability comes in. Excalibur's cost is reduced by X, X being the total mana cost of historic permanents we control. All artifacts and legendaries count as historic permanents. As you know by now, we do play a ton of other equipment that will reduce the cost of Excalibur, and we also play a ton of legendary creatures, which will also reduce the cost of Excalibur. In most games, you will be able to cast Excalibur as early as turn 3 or 4 for 0 mana, which make this an insane equipment. Perfect to equip to Cloud when you can give him trample to just swing for a huge amount of commander damage. Also has a low equip cost of 2 mana, but we can only equip it to any legendary creatures. But like I said, most creatures in this deck are legendary anyways. Next up, we have the acceleration section. These are the cards that allow us to get as much equipment out as soon as possible and get Cloud out as early as turn 4, instantly equipping an equipment to him, swinging with him, and generating value as soon as possible. Evanescence Pilgrim, a simple 1 mana dork that will allow us to generate 1 white mana, accelerating our clock by 1 turn. Birds of Paradise, a 1 mana 0/2 flyer. When we tap it, we get to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool, actually helping us a ton with our color fixing since we are a 3-color deck. Believe it or not, later in the game, Birds of Paradise actually is a fantastic equipment carrier. Since it has flying, it has evasion, and we can just equip our swords on it and easily get combat damage triggers. Delighted Halfling, my favorite mana dork of all time. So 1 mana, 1/2 creature. When we tap it, we get to add 1 colorless mana to our mana pool. We can also tap it to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool, but we can only use it for legendary spells. As you know by now, most of the creature spells in Cloud are actually legendary creatures, so this basically just functions as a mana dork that can generate mana of any color. And on top of that, if you use mana generated by this ability, the legendary spell also can't be countered. This mana dork is an absolute nightmare for control decks. Sol Ring, a classic mana rock used in most decks, but in this deck especially, it's really insane. Cloud has 2 generic mana in his mana cost, so Sol Ring will allow us to cast him as early as turn 3, and most equipment in this deck has at least 2 colorless mana in the mana cost. So we can basically use Sol Ring for any spell we cast for its full value. Arcane Signet, 2 mana rock that just helps us with color fixing and acceleration. Talisman of Conviction. This is a 2 mana Boros mana rock that just helps us with color fixing and helps us accelerate our mana by 1 turn. And most of the mana costs in this deck are red or white anyways. We barely play any green cards. Sword of the Animist. It's a 2 mana equipment we can equip for 2 mana. The equipped creature will get a stat boost of +1/1, and whenever the equipped creature attacks, we get to search our library for any basic land card and put it onto the battlefield depth, really accelerating our mana by a ton. This might look like a really simple equipment, but it's probably in the top 3 equipments in this deck. The fact that every time the equipped creature attacks, you just get to filter a basic land out of your deck really accelerates your mana for future turns by a huge amount, and will also make sure later in the game you're not drawing any basic lands, since they will already be out of your deck. With creatures that reduce equip costs or reduce the casting cost of any equipment, this is just absolutely insane. For example, if you play a card like Bureau Headmaster or Sit on turn 2, you will be able to cast this card for 1 mana on turn 3, equip it to that creature and instantly swing with it, allowing you to ramp your mana really early in the game. If you want to build any equipment deck, be it Cloud or whatever equipment commander, always include Sword of the Animist. It's just a way too good of an equipment. Bitterhorn, Nissa's Animus. This basically is Sword of the Animist but with living weapon. It does cost 3 mana and has an equip cost of 3, so both the casting cost and the equip cost are increased by 1, but this equipment comes into play attached to a 0/0 germ token, meaning you don't have to equip it anymore. Next turn you can just swing with it and also start ramping and filtering basic lands out of your deck. Exactly the same ability as the previous card, Sword of the Animist. Also one of the better equipments in the deck. Next up we have the support section. These cards really glue the deck together and have really awesome interactions with all the cards we play, but they didn't fit into any of the other categories. Esper Sentinel. Yeah, I know, this is a really boring card, it's a really broken card, but you must play it in any deck that's in white. Since white usually lacks card draw, and Esper Sentinel just is the best card for the job. It's a 1 mana, 1/1 artifact creature. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell in a turn, they will have to pay X, being Esper Sentinel's power. If they don't, we get to draw a card. If you play Esper Sentinel on turn 1, I can guarantee you, if it sticks to the battlefield, that it will draw you an immense amount of cards. If you play Esper Sentinel, or if you've ever played against it, you know how annoying and how strong this card really is. Later in the game, if you actually start stacking some equipment on Esper Sentinel, opponents won't have to just pay 1 mana. The power of Esper Sentinel will be at 3, 4, 5, and opponents will have to pay that much, or you will just be drawing cards. And as I mentioned before, the weakness of any equipment deck is drawing cards. When you have an equipped Esper Sentinel on the battlefield, you will never have to worry about drawing cards again. Trust me. Masterwork of Ingenuity. It's a 1 mana equipment spell, and you can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any other equipment you already control. This card really is just insane if you have some expensive equipment on the battlefield. And it will enter as a copy, meaning it will also copy any ETB effects your equipment might have, like Living Weapon, Job Select, or 4 Mirrodin, meaning it will also enter attached to a creature token. Let's say you have a Nettle Cyst on the battlefield, which will usually cost you 3 mana. For 1 mana, you just get an additional Nettle Cyst and an additional creature token it's attached to. Just be careful, we do play a ton of legendary equipments in this deck. If you do copy a legendary equipment with this card, you will have to sacrifice one of those equipments due to the legend rule. So be warned. Rancor, a simple 1 mana enchantment that will give the enchanted creature +2/0 and trample. I already mentioned how important having trample on your creatures is in this deck, and Rancor is just a really easy way to get it on your creatures, plus an additional power boost. When Rancor would be put into your graveyard, if the creature dies for example, it just gets returned to your hand. So basically for 1 mana you have a card that just keeps on returning, giving one of your creatures +2/0 and trample. Usually when you have Cloud and 1 equipment, just casting Rancor on him is enough to get him to 7 power and start making him generate treasure tokens. Some of the cards in this deck also don't only trigger when we do something with equipment, but they also trigger whenever we do something with auras. And Rancor is an aura. The only one we play in the deck, but yeah, it's still an aura. Sigarda's 8, a 1 mana enchantment that probably is the best card to have in your opening hand. It allows you to cast aura and equipment spells as though they had flash, meaning your entire deck gets to run on instant speed. Just flashing in creatures with Living Weapon as blockers, for example. This is a nice little passive ability that really changes up the playstyle of your deck and allows you to surprise opponents. And the second ability reads, whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under our control, we instantly get to attach it to a creature for free. Yeah, you can just start flashing in equipment, no matter what the equip cost is, you instantly get to equip it. If you play this card on turn 1, you will have a really good time, saving you a ton of mana in equip costs. Steel Shaper's Gift, a 1 mana tutor that allows us to search our library for any equipment card and put it into our hand. I talked about this card already when talking about Stoneforge Mystic and Cloud. It basically allows us to get the right equipment we need at the time at that board state. If you need ramp, you can get Sword of the Animist. If you need a way to close the game, you just get Caldera Complete. In a singleton format, like Commander, where you play 100 differently named cards, tutors will always be really valuable. Inventory Management, a 2 mana combat trick with Split Second. Split Second means as long as this card is on the stack, opponents can't activate abilities or add other cards to the stack. This basically translates to whenever you play this, opponents can't respond. For each aura and equipment we control, we get to attach it to a creature we control. This card lets us shuffle around our equipments on our creatures at instant speed and gives our opponents no window to react to it. So if you swing into an opponent and they declare blockers and play some combat tricks to actually buff them and make them win in combat, you can just cast Inventory Management, switch your equipment around so you win combat and they won't have any way to respond to it. Just a really fun card to use, and it will make sure you win every combat. And this card will always surprise opponents. They will never see an Inventory Management coming. Aggravated Assault, a 3 mana enchantment with an activated ability that costs 5 mana. When we activate the ability, we get to untap all creatures we control. Then we get an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. This is a classic enchantment that has been around for many years and one of the easiest ways to get a ton of extra combat phases. Additional combat phases in this deck are already really good. We will generate a ton of value thanks to cloud triggering, combat damage triggers, attack triggers. Yeah, you get the point. But we also play 2 somewhat combos, so with this card it actually allows us to close out the game instantly, if we can just hit the right circumstances. The first card that combos really well with this card is Sword of Feast and Famine. As long as we have 5 lands and we can keep hitting opponents every single additional combat phase, we can just generate infinite combats. Let's say you're tapped out. You swing with a creature with Sword of Feast and Famine attached to it. You actually connect, deal combat damage, and you get to untap all your lands. Then since you have 5 lands, you can just tap it, pay 5 mana and get an additional combat phase. You swing again, connect again, untap all your lands, go for an additional combat phase, and this way you can just loop infinite combat phases. It's not really an infinite combo, but it is. You just need the right circumstances and make sure opponents can block your creature. And the second card that also goes somewhat infinite with this is the Reaver Cleaver. You just need a creature that is able to deal 5 damage to an opponent with the Reaver Cleaver attached to it. You swing with a creature, you deal at least 5 damage, be it to trample damage or unblockable damage, and you generate 5 treasure tokens. Sacrifice those 5 treasures, go for an additional combat, connect again, generate 5 treasures, and you can also just loop this infinitely and get infinite combat phases. Just make sure your opponents can block your creature or remove it and you are able to do combat damage. Forge Anew, a 3 mana enchantment. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to return any equipment from our graveyard to the battlefield. We're not an equipment reanimation deck, but later in the game, if someone removes your equipment for some reason, this card is a perfect recursion tool, just reanimating it, bypassing the mana cost. During our turn, we can also activate equip abilities of equipment we control at instant speed, meaning we can just swap our equipment around during combat phases. Also, a really nice added benefit, which can make you surprise opponents. And the cost of the first equip ability we use in our turn is reduced to 0 mana, allowing us to equip 1 equipment for free to a creature every single turn. This card in general is just a jack of all trades for equipment decks, giving us recursion, instant speed casts, and free equip costs. Versatility. And the last card in this section is Gold Warden's Gambit. It's an 8 mana sorcery spell with affinity for equipment, so the cost will be reduced by 1 for every equipment we control. When we cast it, we get to put 5 2/2 rebel creatures on the battlefield with haste. Then for each of those tokens, we are allowed to equip one of our equipments to it. This is just a perfect card for our go wide equipped creature strategy. If we have 3 equipments around, we can just cast this, generate a lot of creature bodies, equip our equipment to it, then we swing with them with Cloud included, and Cloud will just draw us a ton of cards since we will be swinging with a ton of equipped creatures. Thanks to the affinity for equipment, usually we can cast this for like 4 or 5 mana, which is honestly a pretty good deal to get that much creature bodies and free equips. If you made it this far in the video, it's very clear you like this type of deck. You can thank me by hitting the like button, hitting subscribe and hitting the bell notification icon. And let me know in the comments below, what's your favorite equipment card? Next up, we have the interaction and protection section. The protection section are equipment and spells that keep Cloud and the rest of our creatures safe, while the interaction spells are removal spells or allow us to deal with problematic permanents. As I mentioned in any of the videos of the decks I make that play white, I will always be including these two cards: Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile. These two cards are two of the most efficient removal spells ever printed. Just 1 mana to exile a creature. Opponents will get a basic land or they will gain some life from it, but that honestly doesn't matter if you can remove a key creature they control. Play your removal, people. Boros Charm, one of the 2 mana instant speed Ravnica charms. Like all Ravnica charms, this card comes with 3 fantastic options whenever you cast it. You can choose to make it deal 4 damage to target player. You can use it to give all permanents you control indestructible until the end of turn, or you can give target creature double strike until the end of turn. The main reason why we play this is a 2 mana indestructible to our entire board effect. Just when someone plays a removal spell or a board wipe, you can just Boros Charm and your permanents will be safe. That being said, the other options on this card are also perfectly fine. If an opponent is at 4 life and you can't close out the game because they have blockers, just Boros Charm them. Or if you swing with a huge creature with trample, you can just instantly give double strike and make it finish an opponent. I honestly really love every single Ravnica charm. Versatility really is what makes Magic cards great. Heroic Intervention. This card basically is the same card as Boros Charm. 2 mana, give all permanents you control indestructible and also hexproof until the end of turn. Both this and Boros Charm prevent board wipes from working, but if an opponent, for example, bounces all creatures you control, Heroic Intervention will also give hexproof, so opponents won't be able to target your creatures with bounce effects, for example. Just another versatile card to protect your key creatures. Robe of Stars, a 2 mana equipment that allows the equipped creature to phase out for 2 mana. Phasing out basically means the permanent that phases out doesn't exist until our next upkeep. Phasing out is especially good in an equipment deck because when a permanent phases out, it phases out with all equipment attached to it. When it phases back in, it just phases in with all the equipment attached to it. So you don't have to re-equip your equipment again. Phasing out honestly is one of the best ways to protect your creatures because they just won't exist. Your opponents won't be able to target them. Yeah, it's impossible to interact with them while they're phased out. Mythical Code, a 3 mana equipment with flash and indestructible. Whenever Mythical Code enters the battlefield, we get to attach it to a legendary creature we control. That creature will also get indestructible. Whenever an opponent plays a board wipe or a removal spell, you can just flash in Mythical Code, equip it to a legendary creature, which is like most of the creatures in this deck, and give it indestructible. Later in the game, if your opponents actually want to deal with Mythical Code, they can't, because the equipment itself is also indestructible. Next up, we have the lands. We do play quite an expensive mana base since we are a really aggressive deck. We want to get our key creatures out as early as possible, and we want our lands generating the colors we want as early as possible. So we play fetches, shocks, yeah, the entire package. If you do care about the budget of the deck, you can perfectly replace the fetches and shocks with more basic lands or with some lands that enter tapped, like the Scry Temples or some Guild Gates, for example. First up, we have the utility lands, the lands that actually do something. Boseiju Who Endures. This is a legendary land that enters untapped and taps for green mana, basically functioning as a basic forest in this deck. And on top of that, it also has the channel ability. For 2 mana, we can discard this land to destroy any enchantment or artifact on the battlefield. The controller of that permanent then gets to search their library for a basic land and put it into play tapped. At all times, we will be controlling a legendary creature, so this ability will only cost you 1 mana. Boseiju is just a fantastic way to deal with any problematic enchantment or artifacts on the battlefield. A channel ability actually is an activated ability and can't be countered. So this is an absolute nightmare for control players. The only real downside to this card is that it's a really expensive card. Kessig Wolfrun. This land taps for a colorless mana, and we can also activate its ability by paying X, red, green, and tapping it. When we do, target creature will get plus X0 and trample until the end of turn. Later in the game, if you do have a ton of mana floating around, this is a good way to close out games. You can just pump a ton of mana into this land, give a creature trample, a huge power boost, and you will be able to swing for lethal. Minas Tirith. This land enters tapped unless you control a legendary creature, which usually won't be a problem in this deck. Just taps for 1 white mana, so basically functions as a basic plains in this deck. For 2 mana and tapping it, we can draw a card. We can only activate this ability if we attacked with 2 or more creatures this turn. This is just a perfect way later in the game to draw us additional cards and solve the weakness of this deck. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. This legendary land will make every land on the battlefield a forest in addition to its other types. This land ensures we can tap any land we control for green mana, really helping us out with color fixing. Be warned, every opponent's land will also be turned in a forest in addition to its other types, so you will also help them with fixing their colors. Witch Enchanter, a 4 mana 2/2 creature. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to destroy target enchantment or artifact an opponent controls. Just another awesome way to get a creature body onto the battlefield and allowing us to deal with problematic enchantments and artifacts. There's no real downside to this, because if you desperately need lands and you don't need a creature, you can just play the backside of this, pay 3 life, and it even enters untapped, functioning as some sort of a basic plains. We play 3 fetch lands, 3 shock lands, 3 pain lands, 3 bond lands, a Grove of the Burn Willows, a command tower, 2 of the Horizon lands, Plaza of Heroes, an exotic orchard, and for basics, 4 plains, 3 mountains, and 3 forests. That's it for my Cloud X Soldier in-depth deck tech. Honestly, I really love this deck. An equipment-based commander deck that's not a Voltron deck. Clean, powerful, and most of all, it's really fun to play. The decklist is in the description below. If you do decide to head over to Moxfield, make sure to leave a like on the decklist. I'd really appreciate it. If you made it this far in the video, comment a sword emoji so I know you're a part of the endgame crew of these videos. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.